right, so this week's Torah portion, Re'eh, means to see, which brings to mind the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. When Abraham obeyed, took his son, took servants, he uh, he prepared the wood for the altar. He brought 2 young men with him, and they went to Mount Moriah. And Abraham left the 2 servants down, took his son with him, and his son asked him, Isaac, he says, has him carry the wood on his back, right? And as they're going up there, he says, Father, I see the wood and the fire, but where's the lamb for the sacrifice? And he says, God will provide, right? God will provide. Hashem will provide. So they continue up there, and they get the altar made by hand, right? They don't make it with tools, right? And then he binds Isaac. And at this point, a lot of people say, oh my goodness, why didn't Isaac fight back? Well, because Isaac had faith like his father. If God told him to do this, then there's a reason. He, according to the Midrash, that he knew that God would raise him from the dead, that they believed in resurrection, okay, which is very important to understand that there is resurrection. And so he was willing. He was willing to do this. And before Abraham could kill him, the angel before the throne of God said to him, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am, Hineni. He says, now I see that you trust in me, that you have faith in me, and that you will do whatever I ask you to do. Do not kill the boy. And as he's looking, and God provided a ram, and it says, and Abraham looked, and that's the same word, re'eh. And what we find out about re'eh is a mysterious word. It means to see. But according to Kabbalah, it also can mean to see through time, to see in the spiritual. Okay? And that Abraham saw the real lamb, saw the Messiah. And that, according to Jewish tradition and the Midrash and stuff, that both horns were taken, one to be blown at Mount Sinai, and one to be blown at the arrival of the Messiah. According to also is that one was bigger than the other, and the bigger one is the one that we'll hear when the Messiah comes. Okay? But what we're looking at is that he was obedient. Isaac was obedient. And what we read here now is that once they're done, it says that Abraham went down to meet his young men, right? Where's Isaac? Wrong Isaac. God is giving us a picture that even though Isaac wasn't literally offered up, that God wants us to see in that sense that he accepted Abraham's offering. That's why we don't read about him till after Sarah dies again, right? And after Sarah dies, what's going on? He is getting a wife. His wife is coming. Abraham sends Eliezer to his wife's family to bring a bride, right? Rivka. And she is from, idolatry, basically. They really didn't worship God. They had their own gods. But they listened to Eliezer, and she was willing to go. Now, they did try to keep her there for 10 days to make sure, some Midrash says that they kept her there to try and influence her, not to follow in their steps, right? Different things like that. But, of course, he said, Eliezer said, no, if you're barring my way, then let me know. I'll go someplace else. But they said, well, let her choose. And she chose to go with them, okay? To go with them. We're reminded of the story of Ruth and Naomi and Ruth. Naomi tried to send her away along with the other daughter-in-law. The other daughter-in-law finally did go the other way, but Ruth refused, saying, your God will be my God and your people will be my God. Right?
Three daughter-in-laws at once.
Two. Anyways, so what we have is that we see Rebecca is doing the same thing, that she has faith in what Eliezer is telling her. And so she leaves and goes with him to meet Isaac. Never met him before, doesn't know anything about him. But on the trip, and this is kind of which is neat, is that Eliezer teaches her about Isaac. Who he is, what he likes, what he does, what is, the different things about it, get to know him. Now, she didn't meet him, but it says that when they got there that she seen Isaac walking in the field. And when she seen him, she asked, who is that? And Eliezer said, that's Isaac, my master. And of course, she got down and veiled herself, right?
She saw him. She just about died.
And so Isaac comes, meets her. Here's what Eliezer has to say. And in the meantime, what has happened is that when Sarah died, the light for Israel, for Abraham, and for the people had gone out with Sarah. Sarah was a light. And with Isaac, when he brought Rivkah into the tent, and they were married then, the light returned. So Rivkah became the new patriarch of the family, or matriarch, sorry. Isaac then, we already know Isaac is the patriarch, but that he would become that and be the new leader of the family. And that her light would now become there. And that she, just like Ruth said, basically we see that your God will be my God, your people will be my people, etc., right? And so we see all these different things that go up there. Now we see with Moses, the things that God did. God chose Moses to be a redeemer, to be a Mashiach, anointed by the Spirit, not by olive oil, but which is what Mashiach means, anointed one, right? We know that the kings of Israel and the priests of Israel were also known as Mashiach. They were anointed. They were anointed with oil, so they were anointed ones. But the one true Messiah would come later, as we see, because that's what Abraham saw. On that mountain, he saw Re'eh, he's seen into the future. God showed him what would take place in the future. And just as that ram took the place of Isaac, so we see that the Messiah would take the place of Israel. Okay? Anywhere you see Israel and you see the promised one, they are interchangeable, or my servant. Okay? They're interchangeable. And what we're seeing here is that God promised Moses, he said, I will send to Israel one who is like you, one like you. And they will listen to him, and they will obey him, and they will be instructed by him, right? But in the meantime, God was going to send, for us to be tested, a prophet or dreamer who would come and trying to see the people to get them to follow idols and false gods and stuff like that, right? And so the people are warned about this. If you see this, he does miracles, he does these things, they come to pass. You're not, but he's ushering you to try and go worship other gods. You're not to follow him, okay? Not to follow him. Now we have to go back to the story of Joseph. We'll bring all this stuff together here. The story of Joseph is a picture of what God's plan is. Joseph was a dreamer, right? God gave him dreams. His brothers were very jealous of him. Why? Because when Reuben did his terrible act, he lost his position as firstborn. And Joseph, being the legitimate son of his other wife, the second wife, then he became the new legitimate heir. Okay?
So I know that Reuben and Re'eh actually share a root word. So now this kind of gets interesting for me, because I think that we lost Reuben in a bit, in a sense. So in a sense, like with Mashiach, we look at him in the role of what let's say Shem, who came and stood in his brother's place.
Shem?
Yeah, remember, so after Cain slew Abel, Shem, it says in Torah, it says, when Shem stood in his brother's place. Like, he was almost like a reincarnation
Abel?
of
Seth? You mean Seth?
Yeah, Seth. Right.
Seth, yeah, Seth. And it does say of Seth too that he was also born in the image of God.
So it's like, so it's just, I've been,
Yeah.
the roots are-
Everybody here is a descendant of Seth
Right.
because
'Cause
that's who was saved. Noah and his family were descendants of Seth. Yeah, we get into that stuff too. There's a lot of interesting things and comparisons and stuff there too. Yeah.
Some things that I thought there was a root there.
I don't know. We'll have to look that up, but
'Cause I've
it's
got
a
the
possibility.
lexicon- I got the lexicon right here.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'll show you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. But anyways, the thing is with Joseph now, what's interesting is that he became the heir to his family. And so the understanding of this is to know that the special coat that Jacob made for his son was something that was done in that culture back then. It was given to him as a sign that he was the heir apparent, okay? In essence, a royal son, okay? And the brothers knew this and they became jealous of him, right? Everything was handed down to him. He studied with his father. Jacob taught him. He taught him the different things that he needed to know. And of course, he had these dreams, right? And it made things even worse, right? And so we see the dreams, the dreamer. Now, he didn't entice them to go worship other gods. He just said that his dreams showed him that his family would bow down to him as a king or whatever, right? And they got jealous. They ended up selling him to the Midianites and Ishmaelites, and they sold him in Egypt. But then the story goes on, it divides up here. It goes on to Judah. It talks about Judah. Judah marrying a Canaanite woman. Judah has 3 sons. Judah finds a wife for his eldest, Tamar. But his oldest son, is evil, and God says God kills him. And so, according to Levirate marriage, he is given to his second oldest son to have children with her. But he too is evil. But with his third son, he doesn't give her because, well, he's too young, and because his 2 sons have died, there's got to be something wrong with her, right? So he tells her to go home, back to her house as a widow, and stay there. And in the meantime, his wife, Judah's wife, dies. And so after mourning and stuff, then Judah is going out with his friend to their sheep to shear and stuff like that. And on their way, Tamar is told that he's going out to shear sheep and stuff. And so she takes off her widow's clothes and puts on clothes of harlotry. And even where she sets up a tent. Now, a lot of people don't understand this, but back then, a prostitute wasn't just someone like we see today where they're out looking for money and stuff, right? They were part of the idol temples and stuff like that, okay? And that's what they did. So part of the worship of their gods was to have sex with a prostitute, male or female, whatever, it didn't matter. But in this case, so it says she dresses up as a prostitute, so probably dressing up as this in that sense. But Judah goes ahead and takes her and so forth and leaves his stuff with her. So in essence, Judah is, he's already married a Canaanite woman. He's already had 3 kids, none of which really followed God, right? He had separated himself from the rest of his brothers after the Joseph incident, right? And married a Canaanite, stuff like that. So in essence, he was kind of in what you would call not rebellion, but diaspora. Okay, he was kind of like in diaspora. He was out there, away from his family and stuff. But then, after his wife dies, and huh?
In exile.
Exile, yeah. He comes back. Most likely, he probably felt so guilty about what happened he couldn't see his father that way, because we do see that later on, and we see that he does come back, and then he finds out his daughter-in-law has played the harlot, and he is very upset about this. He thinks he's being righteous, so he goes and he's going to have her burned at the stake. That's what they did with him. And she hears that he's coming, so she grabs the 3 things that he gave her as payment until he brought the lamb or whatever, right? She brings them out there and she says, I'm pregnant by this one, by whoever these are. And then he realized, and he was guilt-ridden. He realized that she was more righteous in the sense that he did not follow along by giving her his other son. And so she became a wife for him, but he never knew her, it says. He never knew her again. But she had 2 sons. And the one, Peretz, we see is in the line of David. Okay? Line of King David. And from King David will come the Messiah, from his descendants. Okay? So, what's interesting is that none of Judah's sons that he originally had with his first wife, the Canaanite woman, became heirs in that sense. Peretz did. And Peretz, his mom was not of Canaan. Okay? So that's another thing. So we see all this. But anyways, then we go back to the next story. So Judah has been out in exile. Now he comes back. He's realized his guilt, and he's repented and come back to God and come back into Torah, gone back to his family in the land. And we see that kind of today, where Israel was taken out of the land over 2,000 years ago by the Romans, exiled. Now, here's the thing. Not all Israel left the land. And as we were finding out, not Israel left, but many of them were taken and sold as slaves, besides being murdered and killed in Jerusalem when they destroyed the city and the temple, right? But many of them were dispersed amongst the nations, which when we go back and read what Yeshua said was going to happen, many people understood that was that when you see the city surrounded, don't go back to it. Get away. Get away. Yeah. Anyways, what we see here too now is that there's a famine. Now, the rabbis teach us that in here, famine is like a code word for not just that there's nothing to eat, but spiritually there's something going on. There's a spiritual famine. Why didn't Jacob know what really happened to his son? Because he's a prophet. There was a famine, a spiritual famine. God didn't show him these things, right? And so a literal famine did take place, and so he sent his sons to Egypt, 10 of his sons to Egypt to get and buy grain, right? Lo and behold, they come before the second in command, the second leader of Egypt. And of course they don't recognize him. But lo and behold, it's Joseph, right? Behold, it's Joseph. And they don't know who it is, and he's even got an interpreter. He's not even speaking to them in Hebrew, he's speaking to them in Egyptian, and he's using an interpreter. And he's testing them. He begins to test them. He's not angry at them. He probably was a little angry or whatever, but he tests them to see how much they have they repented? Have they changed for the good? And so he does all these different things. And finally, they go back with the grain. They're put in jail. One of them was kept there. The rest are let go. They're given grain. And then and their money's put back. And then they are there, but they're told, don't come back unless you bring your youngest brother with, right? And so they didn't go up for a while until Jacob finally says, look, we're running out. We need to go back. And Reuben tries to say, hey, we can't go back unless we have Benjamin. And Jacob's like, no, you can't take him. And Reuben's like, well, I'll give you my 2 sons. If I don't bring them back, you can kill my 2 sons. Well, is that really what Jacob wanted to do? He's thinking physical, right? And he's passing the buck in a sense, you might say. But Judah says, look, bring them with me. I will protect. If anything happens to me, I will pay for it. It'll be on me. Okay? So we're starting to see something here. So Jacob relents. He lets them go. They go before Joseph. Joseph recognizes them again, of course, and he has them come and eat with him, a meal. And what's interesting is that I don't know if they recognize it, but when they ate their meal, the Egyptians ate someplace else because they don't eat with Hebrews, it says. So, and yet they weren't eating with Joseph, right? And Joseph had them set up in order of birth, right? And so, and it's just like, are they seeing this picture? Are they seeing this? Not yet. A revealing hasn't taken place yet, but it's coming. And so Joseph gives them their grain, puts the money back in, and then he puts his diviner cup, goblet, into Benjamin's bag, and they let them go. And then they come out after him, right? We know the story. And it's found in Benjamin's bag. And the head of Joseph's house wants to make him a slave. Bring him back. The rest can go. And Judah steps up and says, no, we'll all go back with you. And he then says to Joseph, not knowing who he was, of course, look, take my brothers, but let him go. I cannot again see my father's face if he doesn't come back. He will die. He will die. Right? He will die. And that's when Joseph relents. He realizes he has repented. He has repented. He has turned away from his own selfish desires and stuff, and he's repented. God gave him, going the stuff between the first story of Joseph and the second second story of Joseph. God worked with Judah. God worked with him, got him to realize some of these things. Now, it doesn't go really into say what happened, really, other than he had a wife, he had 3 kids, 2 of them died, his wife died, and then he had this affair with the prostitute, his daughter-in-law Tamar, and he has twins, right? There's something in there. He returns to his family. He realizes that he needs to return to his family, so he returns to his family's camp, okay? And then, with all this other stuff, now he's protecting Benjamin. He's saying, no, don't do this. My father will die. I cannot see him do this, him go through this again. And at that time, Joseph reveals to himself, Joseph, your brother. And, I wish I could be there when that happened, because I would love to have seen their jaws just drop to the ground. Joseph? The one whom you sold to Egypt. Yeah. And so Joseph reveals himself, and he says to his brothers, go back to my father, and you come, and I'll let you live in the best land in Egypt and stuff like that. And so Judah does go, and not only that, but Joseph and Pharaoh, they give them wagons to bring their stuff and their young ones and stuff, right? And they get there, and Jacob's looking at this stuff, and Judah says, hey, Joseph is alive. He's the second in command of all of Egypt. And Jacob's like, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean my son Joseph is alive? And they start telling him Joseph's words. That's what it says. And he heard what Joseph had said, and then his spirit became alive again. Became alive again. Okay? And he said, what are you waiting for? Let's go. My son is waiting for me, basically. And so they do go, and they live in the land of Goshen. Joseph takes care of them, so forth and so on. But what's interesting is that is also the story of the Messiah. As we see that even from this here, we read in Isaiah about that part there. So I need to back up here, though. Is that is that Yeshua is comparing himself to what? Bread. What is bread compared to? The Torah. No man shall live with bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Correct? That's what it says in Deuteronomy. Yeshua is doing nothing more than what the rabbis of his day taught. Some of them misunderstood what he was saying because they weren't privy to what was going on. They didn't understand. Yeshua, the important thing is that what we see here with the false prophet, the dreamer, is that when we see stuff like that and they try and entice us to follow other gods and stuff, Joseph continued to be faithful to God. That's why God blessed him. That's why his wife, even though she was Egyptian, the daughter of the high priest of On, became part of the family, believed in the one true God. Just like Abraham, when it says that when Abraham left for the land, he left with all the souls he had made. In Hebrew, it says all the souls he had made. In a lot of the translations, it says all the slaves he had acquired, but that's not true. It says the souls he had made. How did he do that? Because he taught them about the one true God. He had mercy and compassion for other people. That's why he set his tent on so that he could tell people as they came. That's why the land of Israel is in the crossroads of 3 continents, because people are going to have to travel through there. And they're going to see God's people, and they're going to be a witness to the nations. Okay? That's all that's going on there. And then we see with the story of Joseph, that the first coming of Joseph, the first coming of the Messiah, as we read in the Midrash and stuff like that, Mashiach ben Joseph, the suffering Messiah. Isn't it interesting that Yeshua was known, as we read in here too, the son of Joseph? It's not a coincidence. God doesn't have coincidences. He was the son of Joseph. And just like we read about Abraham and Isaac, people were trying to tell everybody, well, Isaac is really the son of the king of the Philistine, because she was brought up there and stuff like that. And he paid Abraham this to a proof that that's not true. And what God did, according to Midrash and stuff, and I believe it, is that God made Isaac look absolutely exactly like his father, so that people could say to him, he is your son. There's no doubt about it. There's no mischief here, right? He looked exactly like Abraham. He's the only one of the patriarchs that never left the land. Did you know that? He never left the land. He stayed. He was in the land, right? And I believe the same thing happened with Joseph and Yeshua, that God took Joseph's DNA, because there were all these different accusations, even some of them are even said today, but that he looked exactly like his father Joseph. And that's why they didn't consider him to be a bastard child or anything like that, because he looked and acted like his father Joseph. And remember, Joseph was a carpenter, but during the time of Antiochus and stuff, they used a special term to hide their teachers. They called them carpenters, because they're the ones who built up their people with Torah. Okay, so Torah, Joseph was very Torah observant. He always went to the festivals, as we read about. We take a look at Yeshua's brothers. They were all scholars. Several of them are even in the Talmud, mentioned in the Talmud as teachings, including Yaakov. Yaakov HaSadiq, James the Righteous. He is in there. Matter of fact, they talk about him quite a bit. Anyways, the thing is, what we're seeing here is that just as Joseph was not understood by his brothers, so at the time of Yeshua being here, they didn't understand him. Now the thing is, here a lot of people don't like this, but Yeshua was a Pharisee. All his ideas are from the Pharisees. All his teachings come from the Pharisees. Okay, you can see that in everything you read about him. He uses the book of Deuteronomy in his teachings more than any other Torah. That's what he does. He uses the book of Deuteronomy. He's using the Torah. He's not doing away with the Torah. He is using it to teach his talmidim, right? His students about God. And he never once, which is interesting, never once says that he, when his things are mentioned, he says, like one man calls him good, and he says, why are you calling me good? No one is good except for God, right? Never does he ever say he is God, okay? And I just want you to realize that, because if he did, then of course, then we're looking at that. The other thing is that in Matthew chapter 5, he tells us that he did not come to do away with the Torah and the prophets, but to fulfill them. And that's a Hebrewism. A lot of people don't understand what that's saying. The rabbis use the same thing, okay? That I've not come to do away with the Torah, to teach the Torah incorrectly, because when you teach it incorrectly, you destroy the purpose and meaning of the Torah and the promises. But when you teach it correctly, you have fulfilled it. You have fulfilled its purpose, its right teachings and stuff, okay? That's what it's all about. And Yeshua said he didn't come to do that, okay? And with that, for people out there, just understand that if Yeshua, remember we just read at the end of chapter 13 in Deuteronomy, you're not to add to or take away from this. We also read that in chapter 4 twice. You're not to add to or take away from this Torah, right? So if Yeshua were to have changed anything in the Torah or taken away anything or did away with it, he is not the Messiah. And that's what we see here, is that with Joseph, because of the things that happened in Rome, and see, the Messianics were a part of Judaism at that time, just before what's the guy we just read about? The one Roman leader in the 90s, who began to separate the Messianics, the Gentile Messianics, from the Jews. Okay.
Are we talking Europe?
No, he's several generations before or after this. Starts with a V. Anyways, his father was Vespasian, his brother was Titus. Anyways, what we see here is that Messianic Judaism and Judaism, well, they're the same thing, because they weren't apart. They weren't telling people not to quit being Jewish and stuff like that. They were identifying with the promise that God made that the Messiah would come and he would make things better understood. That's another thing. The problem is that as human beings, we understand that all this stuff's going to take place all at once, but God, that's not God's plan. And we see that. That's why we see the story of Joseph being split up into two. And the story of Judah separated in the middle of that. Very powerful, very understanding that God has a different plan than what we think about, We, as human beings, we only see a small part of the picture, but God, he sees the big picture, right? And so when Yeshua is there, what happened is that eventually, just as Joseph was dressed in Egyptian clothing and they did not recognize him, even spoke a different language, that's what happened with Yeshua. The Gentiles took him, clothed him in different clothing, gave him a different language, and even said that he did away with the Torah. We don't have to do any of this stuff anymore, right? Which goes against even what the other shlichim and even Rav Shaul even said. I know a lot of people blame Rav Shaul for Christians, what we have today, but it's not true. If we actually go back and look at his writings in a Jewish context, we'll see that that's not what he was saying.
So do we know if he spoke Greek or Latin?
Who?
Jesus.
To be honest with you, I believe he spoke both Hebrew and Aramaic. I don't believe he would have ever spoken Greek. But yeah, I get it. And So that's what we see, and that he was dressed, Yeshua is dressed as a Gentile, so he's not recognized by his people at this time. But I'm going to tell you something right now, is that the end of days are coming. I don't know when, and we're not supposed to try and figure that out. That's not for us. Even Yeshua says that, when he's asked when are these things going to happen, he says, the angels in heaven don't know. I don't even know. Only God knows when that'll happen. So he's separating himself from God in that sense. Okay. Yes.
So anyway, the two sons of Vespasian were Titus and Domitian.
Domitian, that's the one. Yes. Domitian made it illegal for Gentiles to be Christian, or as they had called it at the time, or Messianic. The Jews continued to be Messianic because they had to pay the Judaica fiscus, the Jewish tax. Okay, and that's why a separation started going there, because the Gentiles said, well, we're not Jewish. Why should we have to pay it? But because they were keeping Sabbath and festivals and Torah and stuff like that, Domitian didn't realize that he thought they were Jews. And then he found out that even people in his own household were following the Shlichim, the Yeshua, and keeping the Sabbaths and all these different things, okay? And that's where the separation began. Anyways, so we've got a time coming here now. We just seen the beginning of it. Well, some of you weren't born then, but I wasn't born either at the first part, but Israel became a nation again. Okay? In fulfillment of Isaiah 35, I think it is. The two sticks coming, or I'm sorry, not the two, the bones, the valley of bones. Okay? The dry bones, right? That they're, in a sense, because it goes with the cry that we are dead, and follows along that same part. And they got the valley of the dry bones, and God says to him, "Can these dry bones live?" And the smart answer he says is, "Only you know, God," right? And so all of a sudden he hears a rattling and stuff, and all the bones are coming together, and then all the muscles and everything in the tissue, but there's no life in them. Ezekiel 37, okay. That's right, Ezekiel 37. Anyways, the thing is that, but there's no life in them. There's nothing really going on. And that's what we have with Israel today. Israel is, yes, it's got a lot of spirituality and stuff like that, but it's a secular government, right? There's no spirit in it, in that sense, okay? But God says, God breathes his spirit on those bodies and they come to life again, right? And that's what we're starting to see in Israel today, that they are coming alive again. And I'll tell you what, October 7th opened a lot of people's eyes. October 7th opened a lot of people's eyes to what is really going on, especially when the Palestinians and other Arab movements tried to say that Yeshua was a Palestinian, that he was a refugee during the time of the Romans, all these different things. And what happened? You had famous rabbis in Israel, Orthodox rabbis, come out and say, no, he's not, he is one of us. He is a rabbi, he's Jewish, he's one of us. He's the son of Israel. That's the beginning, what we see with Judah and Benjamin, when Israel begins to protect his younger brother. The time is short when God will reveal his Messiah to us all. Okay, that time is coming. When? I don't know. But that's why we read in the 13 Jewish principles, in the 12th one, that I believe in the coming of the Messiah, and though he may delay, I will wait for him every day. I expect him every day. Don't know when. Our people have been waiting for the Messiah to come for many generations. We've seen tragedies take place where men who have said that they are the Messiah have led our people into danger and even to be killed. But the time is coming. Messiah ben Joseph has come. He suffered. He was also a man. He was also a prophet like Moses. A lot of the different things he did, you can see compared to Moses. Now, they weren't exactly the same thing, but they were. We see that they represented the same thing, including like the splitting of the Red Sea and Yeshua walking on the water. The healing of the blind, the lame, the deaf, that's a spiritual understanding of this, that their eyes are being opened, not just physically, but to the spiritual that God wants for people to realize, okay? Not only that, but just as the prophets predicted that the Messiah would teach the nations, I don't have a lot of stuff about the church except that one of the things they've done, they've taken the Bible throughout the world and translated it into so many different languages. You know, Israel is well known in almost all the cultures in this world because of that. That my word shall go forth from Jerusalem to all the ends of the world, right? And it has gone out there. But the other thing we have to look at too is that just like Joseph's Joseph's brothers' jaws dropped to the ground. If you go back to Isaiah, what they call Isaiah 53, something happens to the Gentiles too. The kings and stuff that we read about. Where is it here again? I have to find it. Yeah, starting in verse 13 and 52. See how my servant will succeed. Now, every time we see servant, especially in the prophets, it's also talking about not just Israel, it's talking about the Messiah, okay? See how my servant will succeed. He will be raised up, exalted, highly honored, just as many were appalled at him because he was so disfigured, and he didn't even seem human and simply no longer looked like a man. So now he will startle many. Kings will be speechless, not been told. They will ponder things that they had never heard. That's what has happened to the nations today. That's what's happened to the church, is that they have left their Jewish roots. They've rejected the Torah and the Tanakh, the prophets and the writings, as being authoritative, just the New Testament, right? And these things they're not hearing. But when we bring this out to people that have been going, they're like, why aren't they teaching us these things, right? Now, we're not talking about everybody becoming Jewish or anything like that, okay? We're talking about, as Paul said, let the Gentiles stay as Gentiles. They can still be part of Israel. They don't have to become Jewish, because God's promise was not just to Israel, but that he'd also bring people from other nations to join the people of Israel, okay? And you can't be of the other nations if you are all Jewish, right? That's one nation, right? So there's a place. That's why we'll be going through a study coming up soon this fall here called the God-fearers, which is very excellent. It teaches about the Gentiles and where their place is in the kingdom of Israel. Okay? They're not rejected, because we see that in when Moses and the children of Israel left Egypt. It says they left with a mixed company. They were Egyptian, Nubians, Libyans. It says all different kinds of people. Why did they leave with them? Because they believed what was going on. They seen what was going on, and they believed in the God of Israel and Moses. They believed in the promises that God made, and so they left. And what happened to them? They became part of Israel, right? We also see that in Ezekiel in the days to come, in the Messianic era. That I'm not sure of the Messianic era or the world to come. That's one of the, I still have to study that out. But that the Gentiles who are living, it says that you shall no longer call the foreigners foreigners, but you shall call them Sabra, homeborn. And they are to be given an inheritance in the land of the tribe that they are living in, to become part of Israel. Not that they're becoming any less foreigner, but in the sense that they are becoming brothers and sisters. They are become the one people with Israel. And so that's what Yeshua is about. Yeshua is coming again. At that time, when he does come, he's going to gather his people Israel from all the four corners of the world. We pray those prayers in the morning, the evening prayers. And Sukkot is all about the nations, except for the 8th day. Right? It's the 7 days. Sukkot is a festival for the nations. And in that, each day there are different numbers of oxen offered up, right? And the total in those 7 days is 70 oxen, which represent the nations. The number 70 represents the nations. Okay? 7 days, 70 oxen, but then there's an 8th day. And 8 represents a supernatural day. It represents new beginnings. And on the 8th day, it's 1 ox. That's Israel. And the nations joining Israel. And there are 7,000 years, as we know the rabbis have given. There's 7,000 years that God has given us. 6,000 years for us. The 7,000 year will be a Sabbath. Be a Sabbath millennium, right? It'll be the kingdom of God on earth at that time. And in that, it's going to be kind of like it is today, but there will be no war, there will be no famine, there will be no hunger and stuff like that, okay? That stuff will be gone. The Messiah is going to rule from Jerusalem, and when Yeshua comes, he's going to gather his people from the four corners of the world, and those Gentiles, as it says in Zechariah 8:23, those Gentiles that take hold of the Jewish man, his corner of his garment with a tzitzit, the Torah, are going to go with, and they're going to be a part of that kingdom. They'll still be Gentiles, but they're going to be Israelite Gentiles. They'll be part of Israel. Huh? Righteous Gentiles, thank you. And they're going to have a place there. And we're going back to Jerusalem. And what are we going to do? We're going to build the third temple. All of us, just as Israel took part in the building of the tabernacle, all of us with willing hearts are going to take part in the building of the new temple. And we already see that the priesthood is already set up in Israel. It's ready to go. It's got everything ready to go. I know a lot of people are thinking that the temple is going to be built before the Messiah comes, but it's not going to happen. But what we do know is that all needs to be done is the altar needs to be built up in the correct spot. That's all they need in order to start the sacrificial system again. The Kohen in Israel, they go around, they have a trailer and stuff that they bring a self-made, man-made artificial altar, and they have stuffed animals and stuff, but they go through and teach people how to properly kill for sacrifice throughout the land of Israel, which is really neat if you haven't seen it yet. They have a Levitical choir. Remember, you can see them on YouTube. They're awesome. They do a wonderful job. They sing all the correct music and everything for the temple and stuff. You know, I mean, they practice other things too, but they practice Psalms. Was it 113 through 118? You know, they're ready to go. They've got the Temple Institute has everything made, of course, except for the Ark of the Torah, or the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, but everything is ready to go. They have a school for priests to go to learn this stuff. You know, I mean, all that stuff is there. So things are happening. Things are happening quick. And like I said, October 7th came. Those people tried to claim Yeshua, and the rabbis, even Rabbi Shmuel Boteach and many other famous rabbis in Israel, said, no, you're not going to do that. He's one of us. Judah stood up and is standing up for his people. Now, we don't all see eye to eye on things, but the thing is that Yeshua, when Yeshua said that no man cometh to the Father except through me, that's another Hebrewism. The rabbis used to teach the same thing. The head rabbi, like Shammai or Hillel or some of the great rabbis would say the same thing to their Talmudim, to their students. You know, no man comes. Why? Because they were considered Torah. They were considered Torah. Okay. Not that they were literally the Torah, but they exemplified the Torah, the way it should be kept and everything. Okay, and they pass it down to their students, and their students pass it on to their students, and so forth. This is what Yeshua did. Yeah.
can't love ourselves until we learn these studies.
Exactly.
That's what I'm very listening.
Yeah. And that's why God commands us to study, you know. Commands us to study the Torah, yes.
It is funny that you mentioned this too. You said that there will be many that come in my name. That goes back to Hezekiah or the Ezekiel, the dry bones. There will be many that will sacrifice themselves to you. And they will come to build the consensus that is necessary for this all to take place.
Yeah.
So bringing the seeds of Israel back together. Another brother is kind of a drosh or
Building the fallen house of David.
we were
Yeah.
talking earlier about the disfigurement. You're saying we are the mutilation of Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
incorrect.
yeah. It is. It is.
I mean, grossly.
Oh, absolutely. And we've talked about that. People have pictures of Jesus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That those are idols. Those are, especially because Jesus was not European. He was not blonde hair, blue-eyed. He was Middle Eastern. He was brown eyes. He skin of bronze, exactly right. And you even get that from the Gospel of Judas. I think it's Judas or Tim.
He didn't have straight hair.
Can't remember. No, he had curly. He would have had curly hair, exactly. Yeah. So, anyways, the thing is that he's been. That's my point. Is that the Gentiles have redressed him as one of them. That's why our people don't see him as the Messiah and stuff. And they also have taken his teachings out of context. Okay, they've taken his teachings out of context. But our job, my job, is to help try and put him back into a Jewish context, to show that he is Jewish, that he was a prophet, that he is the one that, because we know that it says about the Messiah that he would come, that there would be Messiah ben Joseph who would suffer and die, and then Mashiach ben David who would come and be the conqueror and become the one who sits on the throne of David again, right? And that's what we're waiting for now. And that's the important thing that we understand. What?
Do you remember when we first moved here and we found a little picture of Jesus in Michael's closet?
Something about it, yeah.
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 Probably in there.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, the thing is that we just have to relook at these things. I know that we can't listen to how the church describes Yeshua. Matter of fact, it's not Yeshua. Jesus is theirs, in a sense. They're the way they describe him and stuff. But to the true believer in God, that's not what we do. Why? Because he's the one that the church portrays is the dreamer. Okay? I'm not saying all of them do that. I'm just saying that the majority, when they say the Torah is done away with, and that the Christian church is the new Israel, well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
God has.
All the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, exactly. Even in the Messianic era coming up with the Messiah, the Torah is going to be something we do every day. It's going to be part of our lifestyle, right? And when the eighth day comes, the world to come, the new covenant that God talks about in Jeremiah and other places too, but primarily Jeremiah, the new world to come, that's when that will take place. That's when it will be in its fullness. Now we can experience some of these things now. Not much. We get a taste of it, right? God always gives us a taste. Just like the children of Israel had a taste of what it was going to be like in the promised land, right? We're always given a taste. And so we have a taste of it. But sometimes people, as human beings, take things and go the wrong direction. And that's what we have to study. It's like a banker, in order to tell counterfeit money, he doesn't look at counterfeit money, right? He looks at the real thing. He studies the real thing so that when a counterfeit comes, they recognize it, right? That's what God gave us the Torah for, to read and study so when the counterfeit comes, the dreamer of dreams, etc., which we have seen before, comes, we know, don't follow him. Don't listen to him. You know? Here's the easiest way to determine if somebody is an actual prophet. The first thing is, What? Okay. Anyways, is ask them, do you believe that the Torah has been done away with? And if they say yes, then you say, goodbye, see you later.
Wait a second though. I mean, that's interesting though, because with the Sephardim, and especially the Beni Yanusim, the forced converts, who knows? He could show up as a forced convert.
Who?
Mashiach, when he comes back, he could show up as anybody, really. He would be,
I think we'll know him when he comes.
but I mean, but you would know a forced convert too, because they would be Jewish. I mean,
You may not know who they are in that sense, but that's, in a sense, you might say that they forced Yeshua to become a Gentile by changing him and addressing him and stuff like that. But he'll come as he was, because it says that they're going to see, the nations will see what they have not been told.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
he'll go out one day, he'll put on one of these, and be like,
Yeah. But it says we'll see him when he comes.
right.
We'll see him when he comes. So, anyways, the thing is now I lost what I was going to say.
Bible says that everyone will know. You won't have to be told.
Yeah, you won't have to be told. And that's the thing with Jeremiah too, is that in the world to come, it says that God is going to write his Torah in our hearts and on our minds. Okay? And no one will need to teach others about who God is, because everybody's going to know. Matter of fact, it says also in another place, it says the Torah knowledge will be like the sea, the water in the sea. Okay? And what we're going to see is that our DNA is going to change. We're going to still have bodies and stuff. It's not going to be a spiritual aspect of that, but our bodies will change, and they'll be renewed. Just as it says that there'll be a new heavens and a new earth, the word new there is actually mean to be renewed, to be refreshed again. Just like when you buy brand new socks, you wear them, then you wash them, and you bring them out, they're not new socks anymore, they're just renewed because you washed them, right? And that's what's going to take place. And but our bodies are going to change, and the DNA that is in us now, which right now it's easy to sin. Our DNA, it's easy to go out and do bad things, right? But when we try and do good things, we struggle, right? Because that's the type of DNA that's in our body right now, because it changed when Adam and Eve took the wrong route, right? Ate from whatever fruit it was. So it changed. Not only did God's Shekinah glory leave them their clothing, but it changed them, and they realized, that they're naked and stuff like that, right? And it's also talking about spiritual nakedness, that the neshama, our spirit no longer communed with God in the way it did before. Okay, but that time is coming where it will be back, and that in the world to come, when the renewed covenant is going to be. It's going to be a new covenant to a degree, but we have new covenants that God makes with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so forth, and so on, Moses and stuff. They're the same covenant, just new aspects of them. Okay? And that's what's going to happen there in the world to come, is that the renewed covenant we read in Jeremiah will then take effect. And our DNA is going to change. No longer will evil have a place for it in our bodies. That in order for us to sin, we will have to deliberately go out and do it, period. But our disposition will be that who wants to do it? It's not going to be in us anymore. It's not going to be a driver for us. That's what's coming. So I just pray that, you guys take a look at this, study it out. There's questions, I know. And my job is to give you questions, but your job to go look them up, to find the answers, and then we get together. And as it says, also in the Torah, that in the Tanakh, it says, "Let us reason together." Right? I don't know if you've ever been to an actual Jewish Bible study, but it's very loud.
A lot of phlegm.
A lot of, there's a lot of yelling and stuff, but at the end, we're all friends again. So, but the idea is in a Jewish Bible study, it's not to change your perspective, but to promote your perspective of things, and you come to a consensus. You never know.
Another really interesting aspect is that in ones that I've been a part of, there's always this silent rabbi sitting right in the corner. Two
Yeah.
two people usually going at each other. A couple of people with really surprised looks on their faces. Others going kind of like this. You know, he's got a point. Others going muttering under their breath.
Yeah.
He's a schmuck.
Yeah.
It's like that one story I always tell. He agrees with me on everything.
Oh, the story from the Midrash about the rabbi. This rabbi in Prague, he has a study partner or something. His study partner dies, but his students, you know, he's walking the streets, kind of sad and everything. So his students decide to find him a new Torah study partner, right? So they find him one. It's great, you know. And at first, everything is fine, looking good, everything like that, right? Well, then all of a sudden they see him again. You know, they see that he's sad again and stuff like that. And so they ask him, says, "Do you not like the new study partner we got for you?" And oh, he's great. Then what's the problem? What is there a problem? He says, "Yes, he agrees with everything I say." And that's, you know, the old adage is when you have two Jews in a room, you got three opinions, and that's true. It is true, because we always take the different side. Why? It's just who we are. We got to ask questions, right? Question everything. Right. That's how I was brought up. Huh? Stiff neck now. Yeah. So anyways, so as I say, go study. Just like Hillel said when the Gentile asked him, you know, teach me Torah standing on one foot, right? Of course, Hillel chased him out with a stick, but Hillel said to him, sure, don't do to others what you don't want done to you. The rest is commentary. Go study. Right? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and do the priestly blessing here. Kind of went long. I apologize. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May it be your will. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May it be your will. May the Lord turn his face toward you and grant you peace. May it be your will. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. Go in peace. Have a great rest of the week, great rest of the Sabbath. Tuesday night at 7 we have our Torah Club, and starting probably on September 3rd, I do believe, we'll be starting our Wednesday night studying the book God Fears by Toby Janicki.
This is coming Wednesday then?
No,
I'm sorry, September, right?
September 3rd. Yeah, so it's in 2 weeks,
Sorry.
or a week and a half. Probably start our Wednesday night study. So, but then also, what do we have? We have the fall festivals coming up. Elul starts tomorrow. Time of preparation for the fall festivals, right? Getting ourselves ready for Yom Kippur. Blowing of the shofar every day to remind us to repent, go to our brothers that we have offended, and ask for forgiveness. Forgive our brothers who have offended us, right? Prepare for Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is coming. We will have Rosh Hashanah evening service and day service. We'll have Yom Kippur, have the Kol Nidre on that night that Yom Kippur starts, and be fasting the whole time. And we'll have services all day on Yom Kippur. And then we've got Sukkot. And we'll have our big sukkah out, ready to go. So it's coming up. The time is short here, right? So, yes. Oh, oh. Okay. All right. Oh no. Okay. All right. So everybody, please pray for my dad's girlfriend, Linda. She's in the hospital. they don't know what's going on. She may have cancer in the lymph nodes. She's bleeding. They're getting her transfusion, so please keep her up in prayer. But as we go, we will pray for her as well. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you, and I just lift up Linda to you. We pray for healing for her. I pray that her eyes will be open to the truth of your word and your ways, the truth of your Torah and of Yeshua, and that you would help the doctors to figure out what's going on. And we just come against whatever this sickness might be in the name of Yeshua, and just pray for healing and restoration in Yeshua's name. Amen. Everybody else? Everybody on there? Shabbat Shalom. Have a good week. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.